Maybe she's embarrassed about her fins. Mikomo might be embarrassed.
Maybe she has smelly fins.
Ew.
Welcome to the Macross Delta Recap Show, Episode 3. This is EXO, along with the wickedest walkier of the West, Celia Rose,
Hello.
and the master of all Macross Mecha Manual, Chad.
Hi, everybody.
Let's start with overall impressions. Let's start with me.
Yeah, what did you think, Alex?
I liked the episode, but it went by pretty quick. I don't know if you guys felt that, but it was over before I knew it. Um, it was good though. Not a lot of reveals, but there was a lot of new things, like the Ragnyanyan restaurant. We see a lot of Chuck's family, including his sister and his two little brothers, I'm guessing, and his another sister of his. And
This is Chuck being the native to Ragna.
yeah, and I think there's more than just him that's a native, but we'll get to that later. And there's a lot of Machina fan service, which is good on my part. And then we get to see the VF1 EX, which is really good on my part. Chad, what did you think of this episode?
I didn't really think all that much of it, to be honest. It was a little bit of for me, the episode went by really slow, actually. I wasn't actually, I didn't, yeah, I did not enjoy this episode as much as the first two, believe it or not. Yeah, so it was a bit of a weaker episode, and it was kind of a letdown too because the Raws had been out since I think Sunday or something like that, and
Mhm.
the internet was like on fire. Everybody just going nuts. It's like, this is the best episode of the series yet, and you're gonna love this and stuff like that. And I knew I would love certain parts of it,
Yeah.
but the episode overall was, yeah, it was definitely a disappointment. Yeah, there's certain elements of it, and I'll get into that later as we review the episode more in depth about why I didn't like it. But yeah, there is a lot of good stuff to like in the episode, especially the sequence with the VF1 Valkyrie. That
Yes.
is, yeah, that's something on a whole other level. So I really like that, and there were some other elements I liked as well. But overall, yeah, just not. Not the strongest episode of the series so far, for sure.
It was a bit of a retread of the last episode. I would say not exactly, but
I
it went over familiar
I wouldn't.
grounds for me.
I guess, yeah. I wouldn't call it
Not
exactly a
all the way,
retread,
but
but
yeah.
it wasn't. Yeah, it didn't cover any sort of bold new territory. I guess it was just sort of like the next logical step for our characters, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. I need a break. Celia, what's your take?
It really felt like this episode just kind of was intended to establish things that were necessary. For example, like Hayate actually growing as a pilot and developing those skills. Like in Frontier, when I was thinking about it, I couldn't remember if Alto had that period or not, but I think they just glossed over it for him because he had already been learning how to be a pilot and had some experience. So really, it was
Yeah, he was
more,
in flight school.
yeah. So it was more about him just getting being more involved with SMS and building those relationships with the people rather than building
Mhm.
skill, whereas Hayate has no skill. So for him to have no skill and then just kind of hop into a Valkyrie and do really well, I think that would detract from his character and that would probably be really boring. And I don't think a lot of people would like it. I know I wouldn't be particularly fond of it because that's just not, it's not real. And that's silly to say about a cartoon, but I really enjoyed the fact that Hayate wasn't very good at first, that he was new to it, and especially when he would get motion sickness because he's not used to all the G forces on him yet. Like there were parts of it that were good. I don't think we could have done without it. Seeing Hayate and Freya develop with their skills was necessary, but it probably could have been condensed a little bit.
Sassy, what did you think? Asking the cat. She's so active.
Clearly got an opinion to share.
Yeah, that opinion is pay attention to me and not your stinking cartoon. Which, speaking of cats, what is up with the mercat?
The annoying mercat.
Oh my gosh. Like, he was funny at first, but then when he
No,
appeared a second
no,
time, I was
no.
like, no,
He was
you
not
need to
funny at
get out.
first. was not funny at first. I
All I know is that cat's a jackass.
Yeah, it can't catch fish from the water. It has to go into the restaurant and take somebody else's.
Oh man, and then like when he shows up again, they're chasing him under the water. I'm like,
Yeah,
"Hey guys, he's in the water. You should just
yeah.
leave him alone. No one likes this cat. He needs to just
Well, we know what
let
that
go."
sets up, right? I mean, when you saw that sequence with the cat hitting the brakes, didn't you instantly tell like, oh, that's gonna pop up at the end of the episode?
I noticed that Hayate took note of it, but
Yeah.
because of that particular sequence when he does utilize that same move and then
Hmm.
they flash to the cat doing it,
Yeah, they didn't need to flash
I'm
back to
like,
the cat
"Why?"
too.
like
That just happened 15 minutes ago.
like we get that he got inspiration from this horrible cat to use this move in his finals with Mirage. And if Hayate wants to draw inspiration from a mercat,
Uh-huh.
more power to him. But the flash of the mercat as the Valkyrie is performing the same move kind
Yeah.
of
re-
disrupted the mood.
yeah, it was as ridiculous as it sounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Chuck comments on it. Oh, he did the Mercat move.
Yeah.
Yeah, they called the Mercat maneuver,
The Mercat maneuver, yeah.
something like that. I can't remember what they call it specifically, but yeah, I was not a fan of that whole like section in the earlier part of the episode. Maybe what I'm going to say is it's going to be unpopular. I know it's going to be unpopular. I'm typically not a fan of broad comedy, especially in anime. It usually doesn't work for me. So what I do is I usually just patiently sit through it and think of other aspects of the episode, or just concentrate on the pure visual element for a few minutes while sequences like that pass. And I really wish they would truncate, or at least have fewer of those sorts of sequences in a lot of anime. And this is not something that's new. This is just something that's always been, I think, a part of anime on a certain level. And it's something that I haven't really ever meshed with. I guess it's an easy way to get people in. Maybe it's an easy way for a cheap laugh that nobody can get offended at because it's supposed to appeal to everybody. But then, so
Yeah.
yeah, that did not work for me at all. And it's strange because I thought, like, when they first introduced the meerkats in the previous episode, it was kind of fun, but they were very brief. Like Cecilia had mentioned, their appearances and the amount of time that they spent talking about the meerkats, what justified them, right? It was like, okay, this is worth a 10 to 15-second mention and a 10 to 15-second worth of animation, right? But now, like, anything more than that, and it's just treading water, I think.
Yeah, and in the previous episode, it was for the gag of Hayate being allergic to them,
Yeah.
which I think was like actually a pretty well played comedic moment. But with this cat, I was just done with him. I was like, "You're not funny."
All right. Well, that was a pretty brutal review of the Mercat sequence.
We're carrying a lot of
We
pain.
just we just killed it for that one person that really loved that sequence.
We're getting a bunch of hate
Turn
mail.
that person
It's
off.
like, you
Yeah.
soulless evil people. You don't like that cute little meerkat. What's wrong with you?
No, if they think he's cute, they clearly weren't paying attention to Cutidoo because that's a cute catfish.
To Kiruru, which is Mirage's little
The little
silverfish.
striped one. He's a little
So-
striped one with a white face. He's the cutest catfish in this whole show so
What does
far.
Kiruru say when she or he's walking?
Uh, isn't it like Cune or something?
I
He's
don't
just
know.
like
It's
Cune.
Cune. Yes, just like the original. Yeah, my boyfriend is a pilot. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
All right.
No, best catfish of the episode goes to Cutidoo. The other cat can just go
Kiruru
away.
wins. And then that little octopus on top of that bridge
Oh,
bunny
Squid
girl.
Girl.
Yeah, Squid Girl started talking, and I was like, "What the heck?" So they all have like little animals on them because one of the bridge bunnies had a cat that's strapped onto her chest. Did you guys notice that?
No, I did
No,
not.
I didn't see that. I saw the squid. I like Squid Girl. I think she's cute. So I've been paying attention to her since like episode 2.
Yeah, one of the bridge bunnies had a cat strapped to her under her vest. So I think only two had animals, two of the bridge bunnies.
Crazy.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the big deal of the episode. Let's get into the VF1 sequence. Um, let's go again with Chad. What did you think of that? That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was like I mentioned at the beginning, a whole other level. That was incredible. Um, just as an old school fan, seeing the VF1 animated in CG like this is just
Yeah,
wow.
it's what you always
It's what
wanted
I
to
always
see.
wanted to see. Yeah, like ever since they started doing it like really, really well, like with Frontier and whatnot, I was
Yeah,
like, oh man, I would love to see all of the, the past, Valkyries like the VF4, the VF1, the 19 and the 21 and stuff like that. I'd all like to at some point see them in at least one computer animated flight sequence or combat sequence in a future Macross series. This was pure like Macross gold as far as I'm concerned. And I remember I had mentioned in a previous episode about what for me as an audience member finds the best sort of action sequence, and it's an action sequence where not only is the action happening and it's engaging, but you're also able to do something in addition to the actual action sequence that's going on. Like you can tell a story or feature plot movement or feature character development at the same time as you're having a visually engaging action sequence on screen. I think this sequence does all three of those and then some, which just driving me crazy with how good it is. It has, of course, excellent CG animation. There's also some fun world building going on here. Mirage talks a bit about fighter dynamics, sacrificing stability in flight for a trade-off in increased mobility, which is something that if you're into anything like remotely aeronautics and aeronautics related, I should say, you'll appreciate that small little piece of throwaway dialogue, which is excellent. Um, the fact that it's Hayate and Mirage that are involved in this sequence, and they're not only going through the training of Hayate and I think it's a bit of a character story for Mirage as well, because she was put in charge and made responsible for Hayate's learning and whatnot, right? But it's also because it's them. You have this great character tension between the two, right? And they get to
yeah,
throw like insults at each other while they're doing the training, calling each other Vomit Girl and Vomit Boy, and which was hilarious.
Oh man.
And just seeing like Hayate just like turn blue in the earlier part of the episode after Mirage took him for a flight, and that little twinkle in her eye when she's like, "Oh, so you want to fly, do you, kid?" Just incredible, so much fun. The actual visualization of the VF1 in CG was also very interesting because this is a design, a mechanical design that we have, for the most part, only known in hand drawn art as far as the actual animated productions. There was that the Macross, what was it called again? Where they had like short little reanimated sequences of the original SDF Macross. I can't remember what they were called, um,
Oh,
but
was
they
that like
were
the redone opening?
yeah, they had like a redone opening of SDF Macross, and they had
pachinko.
Pachinko. Thank you. Yeah, I was blanking on that. They had those Pachinko animated sequences, which, when put together, it adds up to quite a bit of new animation. But
Yeah,
that was the only other time that we had seen like a CG animated VF1, and it wasn't.
yeah, and it was
It
kind of awkward.
it was awkward. It wasn't very
Yeah,
good. Yeah, it was done on the cheap, and I appreciated it for what it was. But here we have the VF1 being given the full, like, gold standard treatment. It was great. It was a little bit different. It looks a little bit different, and the proportions are a little bit strange compared to what we're used to seeing because obviously the original VF1 benefited from a lot of uh,
anime magic.
animator sleight of hand and
Yeah,
proportional magic, to make when the wings are always smaller in the other configurations than they are in fighter mode and so on and so forth. But they had to do a real, like, physical, or not physical but real digital model with set proportions. So they had to do some design compromises, and I think they did a pretty damn good job. I was kind of hoping that they'd use the Hasegawa models as their inspiration, because those have always been my favorite renditions of an actual physical model of the Batroid mode. I always thought it was like the best compromise between something that looks stylish but is also capable of transforming into a fighter mode that looks proportionally correct as well. So I was hoping that they use a little bit more of that. But the one that they did for this series is pretty good. I'm pleased with it. I liked it, and it was just like I said, a joy to see this thing, and so much of it too. Like, not only do they have like multiple short sequences of the flight training peppered throughout the episode, but then of course they have the final exam, the big final exam sequence at the end, which is just just a tour de force of like Macross mecha porn. It's so good. Might go down in history as one of the best Macross moments ever. I'm really that taken with it. So I'm unabashedly geeking out here about this. I better let you guys speak here. So go
Well,
ahead, take.
I wanted to ask you this. I know, like they've had like sequences in the past where you see a pilot turn the stick, and then of course, you'll see the plane afterwards, whatever way the pilot directs it. But have you ever seen a sequence where you see all that in one, where they turn the stick, and then you see the flaps in the background move, and then the background actually starts to, turn, the clouds will, start to move. Like they have it all in one shot, and I was just like, wow, this is
Oh, you
amazing.
mean
Like,
like when he's in the
Hmm.
cockpit controlling it, and then you see the control,
yeah, you see
the
him,
exterior control surfaces responding, and then you see the background
yeah,
changing to
all
suit,
in one
all in
shot.
one shot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have they ever done that before? Or because I was just like
yeah.
blown away watching all that.
I'm not sure. I don't think they have, to be honest.
I
Yeah.
don't think so
I think
either.
that's
I
a
just,
level of detail that they haven't ever bothered with before. Here you had your ailerons and your flaps and everything else just like really like, yeah, working and responding. The control surfaces were definitely like a part of the animation itself. And not just in that cockpit sequence either, but in the exterior shots as well. You'd see the control surfaces were actually working whenever the VF1 sort of flew near the camera.
and Celia, jump in if you could answer this. Explain to me the rules of the final exam again. It seemed like Mirage could shoot Hayate as many times as she wants, but anytime that he was able to shoot her, the exam was over. Do you guys kind of got that?
Yeah, so that's basically what it was, is, is to treat it like a dogfight, but it's over as soon as Hayate lands a shot on Mirage. And I think they were giving him that wide of a like a success point, so that he would
Hmm.
actually have a chance at succeeding. Because
Yeah.
that could even just mean, he shoots at her and it like hits the very edge of the wing of the VF1 or something.
Hmm.
In this one in particular, they made it so that, he hits her right across the windshield,
Yeah.
because he was able to use his Mercat maneuver.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was interesting because I don't remember it being said in the episode that she could fire at him, but she was doing it anyways. And
The rule was that if she could engage, like both of them are obviously going to
yeah.
engage in battle, right? But her hits, like it's set up so that as many times as she hits Hayate, he can't lose, right? As far as that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But his goal was to actually see if he could land any sort of shot on Mirage at all. And so the rules of the contest of the final exam were skewed far in Hayate's favor to give him some sort of chance to actually achieve something. They wanted him to like, see what he could do.
Was it timed or anything like that?
Yeah, there was a
Yes.
timer.
Yes.
Okay. That's
They show Ernest Johnson, the captain of
oh, that's right, right.
Elysium,
The holographic
sort of
display.
watching the timer.
Yeah.
And Messer was judging the final exam too.
He was like a referee in the sky.
Hmm. Which is what surprised me when he engaged at the end of it.
Yeah.
Like when Hayate won and he's doing his victory dance, and then he just shoots him.
Yeah.
He's like,
I
cut
actually
that out.
really, yeah, I really appreciated that actually.
I like that
Yeah.
too. And then
Yeah.
he's chasing him. He's chasing him in the VF-31, and Hayate's like, "Wait, you have the new plane!" And he's like, "Sucks
Yeah.
to be you," and keeps firing paintballs at him. I like that scene.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a good sequence actually. The only thing I didn't like about the final outcome, the fighter training story, I mean, although Mirage quite easily defeats Hayate like right at the start of the duel. She's the one who gets the first hit, and she just levels
Yeah, right
his
away.
Valkyrie like right away, and Hayate doesn't even understand what's happening. So I liked that aspect of it, but it did makes Mirage look somewhat lousy, I think, and it also makes Hayate look almost a little superhuman, despite the depiction that he doesn't appear to have any natural feel for flying,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of concerning to me, especially when your character is meant to be involved with people at this level of skill, because these are not like just average pilots. I mean, Delta Squadron is said many times to be the elite, and like Mirage is said to be a genius, right? So she's just like she's part of that family, and she apparently has the skills that allow her to like get to this position. I like that Hayate is finally learning, and he gets some success in his actual lessons, but at the same time I think they went a little bit overboard with it. Like the first time he has to try it, he executes it perfectly, and he gets like an incredible kill shot.
Well, and while
um,
that's happening too, is while Freya's singing, and that's something that might be of concern in later episodes,
yeah.
is when Hayate is performing well, it's because he's responding to the fold waves from Freya's voice.
Yes.
Um, and that is something that, while it's a cool effect right now, while they're establishing character relationships, I don't know how that's going to play out in the future when there's a point where he and Freya are not going to be connected or in a battle together. Like if Hayate can only succeed while he's riding on the wind from Freya's voice, if he ends up in a battle without her, he might be kind of screwed.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And I do kind of appreciate what the creators are going for with the two of them. I mean,
Yeah.
they're making them almost like a team. Like they have to work together in order to achieve their goals, which of course is something anime does incredibly well.
Mm-hmm.
And but in this case, it almost makes Hayate feel a little bit dependent, especially because obviously you know this is Macross Delta. We've had how many Macross movies and TV series now, right? So obviously we can't help but compare Hayate to all the aces of Macross's past, right? And if he has this sort of like codependency sort of thing, it makes him look a little bit like less skilled, less accomplished, one way or the other.
Yeah, I was discussing with someone on Twitter, Sean. I wish I could remember his Twitter handle so I could give him a proper shout. The way our discussion was going was that where he thought that Freya and Hayate are connected emotionally through her voice, and that's how he feels it. I have a slightly different theory, and this was a point that where we reached where we weren't really sure where to go next because we don't have as much information. That it's because Hayate is potentially wearing a piece of fold quartz. Like he has
Yeah.
this purple gem on his necklace, and that's a fold receptor. And Freya has a fold receptor rune. And if she's producing fold waves, then that's how they're both experiencing that at the same time.
Yeah, you actually see that in the animation
Mm-hmm.
because once he starts singing and then when he gets his mojo on, they do like a zoom in on Hayate and then the little necklace does a little bling. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah.
Yep, I did.
Well, let's look at it from since we mentioned Freya. Let's look at it from her perspective and what's going on with her. In this episode, she was going through her practice, but it wasn't exactly going well. Celia, what did you think about that?
Yeah. So what they were picking up in her data is that she's not producing the fold waves that she did during her audition.
Uh,
Even when she was nervous, her fold wave output was lower, but it really went to the level that they were anticipating from her when she was thought she was in danger with the guy who had VAR syndrome and turned out to just be a member of the crew. But in all of their
yeah,
practices, she's not putting out any fold waves. And there's actually a point in practice where she gets discouraged and her rune loses light. It didn't look lit up, but it just goes completely dull.
yeah,
And I thought that was interesting because I'm like, I didn't know it could do that. But
yeah. It's really dark when they showed at that point in this episode.
Mikumo and Kaname at least suspected that, which is
Hmm.
why Mikumo decided, okay, let's show her Hayate out on the
Yeah,
field. Because it's very clear that they have a connection and that the connection does affect Freya's rune. Like just when they're arguing and teasing each other, her rune flashes a little bit.
Yeah.
So she's definitely motivated by him. Whether or not it's the beginning of the first ship of the season, I don't know. They're definitely connected in a way that they affect each other. And for Freya, whether or not she can activate her own powers at this point seems a little bit to be reliant on Hayate, but also to be reliant on when she's in times of high stress, where it's
Yeah.
absolutely necessary to utilize her powers. Mikumo just goes, Walkure, and snaps her fingers into the West Side
Oh yeah.
sign. Oh, man.
OG, man, original
Oh,
gangster.
God. Watch out, Mikumo from the West Side. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I found it as dramatic as the last episode. I do think though that this episode made me like Mirage a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like,
More personality.
yeah, it was an I think it was a good character moment for her to learn to be a little bit more patient with Hayate, and not be so insistent that what he's doing is wrong. Like that's kind of the vibe that I've been getting from her when she's interacting with him is that everything he does is wrong, and it makes her
Yeah.
mad, and she doesn't like him, and she just wants him to go away. But
Because
by
they're
the
two
end of
very,
it,
yeah, two
yeah,
very different personalities. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And he takes total advantage of it and teases her for his own amusement. But by the end of it, where Hayate is able to own up and say, yeah, there's more to this than just flying. And yeah, there is more to it than just flying. And he realizes it the hard way, but at least he realizes it. And he's like, hey, I'm going to show up to classes from now on. And that moment, I think, helped build relationship between Mirage and Hayate just a little bit more, where she's
Yeah.
not going to be so hard nosed about him. She'll still hold him accountable and
Hmm.
still be pretty bossy with him,
Hmm.
but I think she'll have a little bit more empathy now that she has seen this moment where he's willing to learn instead of just do whatever he wants.
I think it's one of those things too between Mirage and Hayate where they don't. I think neither of them realizes how much they have in common either, which is the case
Mm-hmm.
with like so many things and so many character stories in movies, but also in real life. Like humans are just the way we are. People are just great at like instantly identifying the differences. In who I am versus the other people I meet in my life, right? That's just like a self-preservation mechanism in certain respects to hold on to your individuality when you face new people in life. And I think in the case of like Hayate and Mirage, they're doing the same thing. As soon as they meet each other, all they can see are the differences in each
Mm-hmm.
other, right? But they
Yeah.
don't recognize the similarities, which are right there on the surface. Like Mirage seems to resent Hayate's like friendly jibes and jabs and like the way he insults the people around him in order to work up a rapport. Where she seems to be like her opinion is obviously should be far more formal and proper and everything else. But the moment she has an opportunity, she's like, "Oh, so you want to go flying, do you, kid?" Sort of thing.
Yeah, I
And she's got
loved that.
she's got this mischievous glint in her eye, and it's like that's Hayate right there. You are just like him in so many respects. You just don't even realize it though, and neither does he, right? At least not yet. But they have those elements in common with each other. Right, and it's funny to see those play out with both of them currently unaware, that this is going on. Right.
And then he definitely became endeared to her at towards the end when he kind of like says, I'll see you in class tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing that he said was that he still doesn't believe that he has to shoot anybody. Chad, what do you think about that?
Oh, I have a lot to say about that one.
All right, we'll see you in part two of this show.
I'll try to be as brief as I can.
Yeah.
But no, I am kind of excited about this part because yeah, this is a good jumping off point to talk about just the theme of pacifism that's coming into Macross Delta, and this is something that comes in a lot of Kawamori's work. He has that sort of that anti-violence sort of streak or that alternative to violence sort of concept that he likes to continually introduce in so much of the anime that he creates. And I believe that Hayate is being set up as the creator surrogate for that sort of concept yet again. We have Hayate here stating at least twice in the episode that he doesn't like shooting or big guns or anything like that, and he appears set on avoiding that part of Valkyrie combat, which Mirage chastises him for at one point. And they talk a little bit about, how his piloting is going, what's, he's doing wrong, what he has to do. And she says that if you're not going to, if you're not willing to do it all, then you might as well just quit. And Hayate doesn't really respond to that, but you can see from the animation that the character is sort of thinking about it. I have a theory that this might lead into an explanation of that highly unusual gun pod we see mounted on the blue and white VF-31 Siegfried, which is destined to become Hayate's mecha. There's been a lot of speculation about what that weapon is. Some people have been assuming it's part of Valkyrie. It's going to be, the Macross Delta equivalent of the speaker launcher pod from Macross 7. So I think this special gun pod might be a non-lethal weapon of some kind, a disabling weapon or something similar to that, which would describe why it has such an unusual design and a unique design so far in all of Macross.
Hopefully, he doesn't have a guitar for the flight controls. I guess that'd be
I
fine.
live in hope.
Celia, do you have any thoughts about Hayate being a pacifist?
I do think it's something that will be definitely important later on, but it's going to present a new type of challenge to Hayate. Like he already had the challenge of learning to pilot the Valkyrie in the first place, but now learning to pilot it and to engage in combat without actually shooting any projectiles. So I wonder if he might be more engaging in more in some close range type of combat, or if any, if he chooses to engage in any. At this point, he could really go either way, where he's just, well, I'm not into shooting, but I'll still participate in the fight. Versus, I really just don't want to be in the fight. I just want to fly.
It's actually interesting that one of the common criticisms, of course, about this series from old and new fans alike is Macross done as a magical girl series. But in 3 episodes, we've pretty much had only one major
Yeah.
sequence that could be considered a magical girl sequence and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
For the amount of complaints and stuff like that we received from it, it's like there isn't actually a lot of that material, I guess, in the show so far. In 3 episodes, we get one sequence, and that's one major sequence, and that's it. But the story to this point just hasn't justified it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which actually is a good lead in into, I guess, one of the last aspects of this episode, if we want to talk about it, which is the brief sequence on
Windermere.
Windermere.
All right, let's get into it.
Oh, that was so good. It was so short, but it was so good. The reveal of Lord Hines was just like incredible because I totally did not expect Lord Hines to be a child. But I had anticipated that the singer who was causing the VAR syndrome was the child who appeared in the opening sequence. And then at the end of this episode, there's the singing and there's
I
the
know.
child.
So you were kind of right, but
Yeah.
you were kind of
Oh, I
wrong
was
from the last
so
episode. Why
wrong.
don't you explain that to
I was so
everybody?
wrong about Lord Hines because oh man, I had an awful dyslexic moment. And I read my subs where Royd is scolding Keith and he's saying, let's not forget about Lord Hines's health. I read it as Lord Hines's death, which puts the story in a completely different direction. And it actually impacted the reveal when I watched it because
Uh-huh.
I thought that Lord Hines was dead because I misread the sub. And so when this child appears, I'm like, whoa, Lord Hines is a child. Oh my gosh, are they keeping this kid in secret? Like, how does nobody know about him, or her when they're supposed to be dead? But they're really Lord Hines is just in frail health
Yeah.
and not dead and being kept secret from the rest of Windermere. It was still a cool reveal, even with my mishap in misreading subtitles.
And your expert co-hosts didn't do a thing about it either.
Oh, we were both like, did we miss something?
We just went along with it.
This is our anime expert talking, and we totally blew it, and we didn't see any of that stuff.
I just got so excited because I was developing a theory about Keith,
You had
and I'm
your.
like, yeah, this is his dad. Keith is deeply affected. Who's ruling the kingdom if the king is dead?
But
And
that's still pretty much in play, right? The whole Keith thing and him being a bastard, I guess.
yes, that's still
Keith
definitely in
Snow,
play.
right?
Keith Snow. Yeah. Um, but what I don't know is whether or not Hines, either Lord Hines or Lady Hines, we don't know yet
Okay,
because
let's discuss this part.
yeah.
From the yeah, my observations, and then I read later on today, everybody else kind of like agreeing. When you have a diamond on your hair, you're a guy, Windermerian, and if you have a heart like a Freya, that would mean that you're a girl. We don't know this for sure, but it seems to kind of make sense. What do you think, Celia?
I think it
Back to you.
does. It could be that, like it could be gender specific, but I'm also wondering if it could be like royalty specific. I mean, the knights may not necessarily be high ranking royalty, but if
Yeah.
they're connected to dukes or lords, not necessarily on the same rank as the king, but they're definitely within, that category of what would be considered royalty or maybe upper class. I'd like to see some more girl Windermerians just to see if that's true. But so far, Lord Hines is pretty ambiguous because I haven't heard any of the characters that have spoken to Lord Hines use gender specific pronouns, and I
Mm.
didn't hear Lord Hines use any of them either. Like typically with girls, they'll use atashi, watashi, or boku to refer to themselves, and guys will usually use watashi, which is pretty neutral, or ore, which is very masculine. But because Hines is pretty young, if he were a boy, would be more likely to use boku or watashi. But honestly, it's like until somebody actually says whether or not Hines is a boy or a girl, we're not going to know if he's a lord or a lady because Sama is just non-gender specific.
Oh, Chad, Celia Rose. Can we trust her?
I guess we're gonna have to because I don't know one way or the other. um, yeah, that whole sequence. I agree that as per like a lot of anime, they love gender bending
Oh yeah.
and keeping things ambiguous or just like doing all sorts of fun stuff with it. That's part of the amazing creativity of this genre and the medium. I think overall. So this could easily be yet another example of that in Macross Delta, where they're not going to let you know what's going on downstairs, at least not at the start. It's just interesting, I think, to finally be given that connection. Previously, all we had to go on was that one small like throwaway sequence in the original where we saw someone atop a dais on it just like singing. If it didn't create or at least it triggered the var syndrome. And from the very beginning of the series, I'm like, well, what was that? Like, what was that sequence? What was that meant to communicate? Because it's almost a nothing sequence. Interesting to see a little bit more of Windermere. Not much more, but they had a larger landscape sort of view of the whole castle and this long winding road that goes up to it. And damn, does it look cool? So I guess there is that going for it.
Yeah, this episode was like, really pretty. There was a lot of scenes that were just striking.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, we're about to stir up a great wind. Royd is up to something, guys.
Is it Royd or would you say Heinz
I
is
totally
behind?
think it's Royd
Mm.
because Royd is the one who. Okay, so I'm starting to get villain vibes from Royd. For one thing, he had a million pairs of glasses in episode 2.
Dun dun
All right, that's a
dun.
big red flag. Um, but no, the fact that he would scold Keith for wanting to act too soon, but
Uh-huh.
with Hines, he's like, he says, yes, my lord. When Hines says we're about to stir up a great wind, I
Yeah.
think Royd is up to something.
Well, they also mentioned in that famous scene between Keith and Royd, we're running out of time. And there's something urgent that they have to do. So, well, hopefully it happens soon, story.
Yeah, I do feel like something bad is going to happen because
You're
they're.
still waiting for the Scarred guy to just
Yeah, the
get killed.
Scar. I mean, I've already claimed that Scarface Pilot's gonna die, but the fact that they're spending 2 episodes on world building and introducing you to extra characters, that just gives me this feeling that they're doing so in order to have a really strong reaction when something bad
Hmm.
happens to all of it.
Yeah.
Like I'm just waiting for chaos to ensue.
It's been pretty light so far, actually, just as a show.
Hmm.
But definitely one of the lighter Macross shows for sure. I'm not sure exactly how dark it will get. I don't think very much so. But then they are telling us that there's going to be a lot of surprises, especially what people don't expect to happen.
Hmm.
So I'm like, I've sort of been looking at this show as one of the examples of the sillier side of the Macross franchise for sure. But maybe that might not exactly be entirely the case. Maybe they might have a few elements to it that we don't expect. But who knows? I guess anything can happen. But I think the tone that this show has set so far is good.
Yeah, I'm digging the tone, and we know they're gonna go back and forth with the Walkir sequences, and anybody that's asking, for it to not show up again is dreaming. But for me, as long as the song is good, I actually enjoy them.
Yeah, if we get like another sequence where, like we had this episode where Freya was singing during Hayate's final exam, that was great. That was an
Yeah.
excellent use of music with the action, and it was just so much fun. So yeah, I think I'm good with that. And I mean, episode 4 is clearly going to have like a lot of Valkyrie action. I'm pretty sure. So you can look forward to that what was in episode 1 again in episode 4, I think.
And we're probably getting a new song based on what they were practicing in episode 3.
Cool. Yeah, I can't wait for that. I'm gonna put Messer on top of my Deadpool. Not that it's based on anything. I just want to get one prediction correct. So I'm gonna go with that one.
All
Scarface
right.
is still at the top of mine, so
All right, so let's close it out. Celia, where can we find you outside of the Macross Delta recap show?
you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Celia Rose Cosplay. And you can also find me on Twitter at Planets Twinkle.
And Chad.
You can email me at marchingcw@hotmail.com. And of course, you can visit my site, the Macross Mecha Manual. Or you can visit me at the official Facebook page for the Macross Mecha Manual, which is facebook.com/Macross Mecha Manual. And I also post on various anime forums from Anime Nation, ANN, to Macross World.
Is that Hotmail? HOTMALE?
Yes, very much so.
All right. Well, for anybody that's not paying attention, that's not actually true. It's just a regular Hotmail.
Yeah, just a regular Hotmail account.
Yeah. And this is EXO. You can find me on the Macross World Facebook page or the Macross Delta Facebook page, or you could tweet at me at Macross Tweet on Twitter. And that's it. So we'll see you next week for the episode 4 of Macross Delta. Bye.
Woohoo!
Awesome.